Experience work interactions in a different and refreshing light. This is the Leader in You podcast, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. We bring the science of attachment and emotional connection with insight from the last 20 years to share how you can overcome conflict issues at work and build strong team relationships, as well as the connected culture.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Leader in You podcast. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Polina, and I'm here co-hosting this amazing podcast with the wonderful Dr. Lola Gershfeld, who also happens to be my mother. We're actually together in the same room this time. It's so exciting. And we're so lucky to have a guest today on our podcast. We have Beth here. Welcome to our podcast, Beth. So we are currently at the ATD OrgDev Conference, and we're going to be bringing you this podcast today, tomorrow, and not Wednesday. Just today and tomorrow. So you have an extra episode here with us, and we are going to share with you today a very interesting discussion about a speaker actually that we heard this morning at the conference, and we all have our perspective and take, and we thought it would be such an amazing share because it kind of integrates into already what we talk about and already what we're teaching here and already what we do at EMC Leaders, but with a little bit of a twist. So do you want to start, or would you like
first
me
of
to
all,
start?
I want to say hello.
Yes.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining us, Polina. I'm so excited. We're here in Houston, and this is one of my favorite conferences, the ATD conference. They do an amazing job of bringing people together for the health of organizations, giving tools and opportunities for people to learn from each other and to share experience of feeling not alone in this realm of organizational development. So I'm very, very grateful to them, and I'm very happy to have Beth. Beth, how do you say your last name?
Yeah, it's Beth Messick.
Message,
yes,
that's right.
yes.
Beth Message.
Yes.
Welcome to our podcast, and tell us about what you do and what you focus on.
Yeah, so I have my own consulting business, Beth Messick Coaching and Consulting, and I work with companies to build a pipeline of highly capable leaders at every level in the organization, both to grow people's careers and to deliver business results. And so I do that through executive leadership coaching and then talent management and learning and development consulting. And I'm an advisory board member for OrgDev, so I've been on the board for 4 years now, which has been great.
Yeah, and 2 years ago you facilitated our panel discussion.
I did.
It was in Las Vegas, I think.
It was in
right?
Las Vegas.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yes.
And you're going to do it again tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
We're going to do a panel talking about from conflict to connection, how to create emotional safety in driving organizational change.
Yeah.
So, Beth, why don't you start? Tell us about this speaker and what he talked about.
Yeah, so this morning we had Galen Emanuele was our keynote speaker, and he comes from an improv background, and so it was interesting. He was talking about how to, specifically how to use the concept of yes and, which is an improv concept where you can't really say no to your partner when you're improving. You say something and then they have to say yes and build upon it. And I thought he did a great job. I've seen this in other realms, and I think what he did really nicely was not just having a fun session, which it was super fun and not awkward, which is a tough needle to thread sometimes. But I thought he did a really nice job of kind of walking us through activities that elicited our own emotional reactions to yes, and really threading that back to what it feels like in an organization.
One of the exercises that I liked is to write a letter.
Yes.
To write a letter, and you have to do it with a partner. So I say one word and then the partner says another word, and both of us, we like one person writing a letter to another person. What I liked about that, it slowed us down. It's like you have to think about it, and you improv right there, try to navigate how to write a letter. But the second part I liked even more when he said you have to be present.
Yes.
present, and this is what we teach in our process, how to be in the present moment. We actually talked about it last podcast, about being present and how to do that. What did you like about that, Polina?
Well, the process is a present-based process, which is what we talked about last week. And that was really interesting how he integrated us wanting to be present. I noticed that was a lot easier for me the first round than it was the second round, because the second round I was like so much in my head, like, am I being present? As opposed to the first round where I just like went with the flow of what my partner was doing. But I really liked the improv. I did notice that it's a different approach to teamwork. For those of you who are listening or watching, you can try this activity with someone at your work or even in your home. You can have them write a letter, but you're not actually physically writing a letter. You're just going to write a letter but speak the words out loud. Like, for example, it would be something like, "Dear
Molly,
I
want
to
share
with
you
exciting
news."
So something like that. And, he mentioned also how we can have the tendency to be resistant to what the other partner is saying and want to kind of tailor it to what we want in the letter, as opposed to just saying yes to what the partner is wanting to say. So it could be something different than what you expected. And then instead of like trying to tailor it back to what you want, you're still staying present with how the letter comes together. So I thought that was really fun. And the second time around, it was like a much more bizarre experience for both of me and my partner than the first time. But I still really enjoyed it. Yeah, present-based process is really important, because what we want to do is feel the emotion that we're experiencing at the moment that it's happening. But if we don't get an opportunity to do it at the moment, then we get to have the process that EMC Leaders has to bring us back to that moment, so that we can identify what those feelings are and how we can express them in the way that we're experiencing them at the moment that they're being experienced. So
it actually reminded me of the training I attended at Franklin Covey, where they talked about being present, but it was always cognitive for me. I was like, when you listen and you go back to your team, you try to like being present. And what I noticed is that before I learned the EMC process, or I learned about emotions, I was mostly in my head, like trying to understand the content, what they were trying to say. It was actually like not in my view to understand the emotions behind what were they trying to say. And after I learned it, now, like when I did the exercise with my partner, I felt her enthusiasm. She was like, we wrote a letter how we're grateful and how we can pray and how we can think about God. She wanted to.
You had a deep exercise.
Exactly. It was like a 2-minute, but it took us to a different level. And I was thinking to myself how different it was for me at this time, because I was actually tuning into her emotions. Like as soon as she said pray, like wow, I can understand that feeling of elation or that hope, that not feeling alone. All the emotions came to me at that moment. So I feel like what the EMC process has done for me, it's expanded my horizon. It's like my plateau, which, so to speak, of emotional experience. And then you can tune into the people so much easier. It's like you're taking them to the dance floor and you're dancing with them, and suddenly you're dancing to the same music. And it feels like fun, more than work, being in your head trying to figure out what the next step is. So.
I want to just add too, so a lot of times that we work with clients, we notice that clients say, maybe they don't want to, and I don't know if you have this experience too, but they don't want to talk about like their past. They're like, move on from the past. We don't want to talk about like past trauma or past injuries. Like, we just have to get over it and move on. And something that I noticed too is when conflicts occur and you don't actually use any sort of way to process that, those feelings stay with us, right? So they get buried deep down inside. But then when you could experience a similar conflict or have those same emotions come up, that's what we talk about, that's what we mean when we say like present process. We want to not necessarily bring up the past issues that we are having, but we will talk about it, and those same feelings that we had when the conflict occurred or where the issue occurred will come up, and then we can like cater and tend to those feelings that we're experiencing at the moment that we're talking about it. Yeah. So that's what I also noticed in this exercise. It was like, oh, every time I was like, in the other exercise we did a second one, I was like indifferent. We had to be indifferent to requests that we were making for each other. I was like, oh, it's so sad. And like every time I was indifferent, I was even more sad.
I thought it was a really good exercise. Essentially, we had to plan a picnic with a partner. And the first time we did it, we had to say yes to everything that they wanted. So I want to bring a picnic basket.
Yes.
And I want to bring a picnic blanket. Great. Yes. And right. The next round was you have to say no to everything. And a very firm no. So I want to bring a picnic basket. No. I want to bring a cooler. No. I want to bring chairs. No. And it was interesting to be like, this is really going nowhere, right? Like we're really not getting anywhere. But I agree with you. The next, where we were indifferent, where we had to say, essentially kind of say, like, I mean, if you want a picnic basket, you can't. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to bring a cooler. Okay, well, you can bring the cooler, but I mean, that's fine. I don't really want that. I'm going to go ahead and bring some chairs. Yeah. That almost felt worse.
Yes,
because at the end of it, my partner and I were like, well, we should just go on separate picnics.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't need to be doing this together. But it was interesting knowing that we're in an artificial environment, doing an activity where we're not going on picnics or writing letters, but you can feel it as it's happening, and you can kind of feel the like
in your body,
feel it in your body, and the like tightening and and the closing down.
It was like more sad. And the other thing too, I noticed it was like, I can tell, because that's a sensitivity for me in my intimate relationship. Like if I'm dating someone and they don't get me like a clear yes or no, I have a problem with that. You know, I'd rather just tell me yes or no instead of like maybe, like I don't know, or like yeah, sure, you know, because then I'm like, there's no certainty in that, you know. So it was almost out of the three situations, I preferred the yes and no. Out of like the, oh, well, I don't know, you can if you want. Like, no, I don't like that.
That almost felt more aggressive to me than the no.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
Look how in tuned we are from that interaction, because even with a stranger, we are creating this experience, and we are so sensitive to that. Our body starts to respond and react to that indifference, as if we're getting the message, oh, this person doesn't care about us, or this person doesn't care about me, or that message becomes very difficult for us to handle. This is what we're talking about when we talk about the emotional awareness. To understand when we get triggered and how does it impact our body, and the sensation that there's a book, Body Keeps Score. I can't remember his name, but it talks about that the body feels faster than our mind can understand. Process. So even the facial expression shows the emotion before we can understand. So other people can sense something is going on with you. What's wrong, right? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, but because your facial expression shows that there's something happening. Yeah, it's interesting to notice these nuances about ourselves and to understand how impactful we are to each other, how much we trigger, and how much we need to know what are we triggered by. If we don't have these conversations, if I never like tell you, oh, this is what triggered me, you will never know. You will have to guess. So I feel always like it's our personal responsibility to learn about our triggers, about our sensitivities, about our emotions, and then to communicate it in a way that creates safety for others, so that you can pull the other person closer so they can be there for you.
I do want to add the missing link, which I felt in the session this morning was wonderful, and I was laughing the whole time, and I thought it was a really great exercise. One of the things that Galvin, is that his name, Galvin? Galen. One of the things he said was, you know, imagine if you're saying no, if you go through the exercise and you say no, and then you feel like that uncomfortable or like the feeling of like, oh, I didn't feel good to say no. Because even like at one point, one of the ladies was like, no, Adelina, my daughter was here, you know,
Yes.
and she was standing next to me. And the lady goes, no, Adelina can't come. And I was like, of course she can't. She's a party to go to, you know? And I got like all bitter. But even in those moments, like sometimes it's not so easy for us to just not say no, you know, or like for us to just be a yes person.
Yeah.
Because we also have to understand where that comes from, you know, and that's something that we work on too and teach in the EMC process is understanding that fear, those no's, and the difficulty for people to say yes and comes from our fear or our shame or surprise or sadness.
Well, and I think the bigger point that he was making, or one of the bigger points he was making, is oftentimes we have our own agenda in our head, and we're thinking about what we want to say before the other person has finished speaking, and so we don't get to yes because we've got all this other stuff going on in our heads. And even if the answer is no, if you can at least do it in a way that's open to getting,
like a positive, he said, right?
getting the other person's perspective, or building on the like, well, maybe no to this, but how can we expand this? You know, I think it's the difference between that feeling of like closure as opposed to openness.
Yeah. I heard that too from the takeaway, was that like, how can you positively say like no and no and
yes, he said it's not about
It's
yes
not
or
a-
no, it's about how you deliver that message.
Right.
What I find interesting, like working now with taking people through the reconnection process, I noticed that when the relationship gets stronger, people naturally become open. They're much more flexible, and this is what emotional connection is. It's when you are secure in your relationship, you are flexible. Like the whole team is now flexible. It's open. It's responsive. It's willing to take risks. Where before, when you feel disconnected, I remember working with this sales team, and one of the people, he was so disconnected. So every time they would have meetings, everything was no. And the team was going crazy because they said like, well, what is your suggestion? And he couldn't give any suggestion because he was just not into it.
Yeah.
He was so disconnected. He was so hurt from what happened in the previous situation, where he was just stuck in that moment. Somebody was saying they had meetings before the meeting and then meetings after the meetings. I think it was one of your sessions, norms, right? This is what this team was going. The manager was having meetings before the meeting and then meetings after the meeting. And it would go into these 11 o'clock night hours. And he would say, Lola, I'm so exhausted from these meetings.
Yeah.
And he would just pursue and try to get people connected and communicate with each other. Well, the whole time after the fact, when we did the process, they found out that this person was really hurt. He felt completely rejected and abandoned, and he couldn't express it. He didn't know how to express it. He would just shut down. And every time when the meeting happened, he would just say no, know. And that was very, very difficult for the team. So once they repaired the connection, everything became yes, right? And it was easy for him to say yes because he was on board. He was connected.
Yeah.
I see that with my kids too, so I like that. I hope so.
At the end, he was talking about that we all have choice of what to say, how to say. And I was thinking to myself, you have a choice when you're relaxed, when you are balanced, you have a choice. But when you are disconnected, when you are emotionally falling through space, when you are in an argument, it's hard for you to choose because you don't have a choice. Like the emotions take over. I mean, just think about the moment when you get into an argument. Like I remember every time I get into an argument with my husband, I have like EMC trainer in my head and it says, don't say that. But I say it anyway. Because I want to prove it I'm right. And because
you have this rewiring that was from the past that was not
because
effective.
I want to be
right?
heard and I have a voice and I'm going to say it, right? So it is easy to say you have a choice, but in reality, emotions drive us, drive our interactions, our behavior, and our Sorry about all this noise. If you can,
They can't hear it. They can't hear it.
But so what happened in my case is I'm able to slow things down.
Sure.
Now, when I worked with emotions, and many times we had these bonding conversations, I can take a breath. I can recognize when we go into a negative cycle. I can say to myself, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna have a voice. You have a voice. This person respects you, values you. It's gonna be okay. And then I can wait until we can have a conversation and not push so much or pursue so much my point of view. So yes, you have a choice, but I want to also remember that sometimes it's hard for us to have that opportunity to manage our emotions because we get so overwhelmed.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. If you're listening, remember you can join us or come see us if you happen to be here at the ATD OrgDev Conference. We have a table here, and we'll be speaking tomorrow at 9 a.m. and again at 2 p.m. navigating difficult conversations. Thank you so much, Beth, for joining us on our podcast.
And how people can connect with you.
Yeah, you can absolutely connect to me on LinkedIn. It's Beth Messick, Messich, or on my site, which is bethmessich.com.
Wonderful.
Great, wonderful.
Thank you for joining
Thank
me.
you, guys.
We'll
Bye.
see you next time. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's a joy to share these podcasts with you. Be sure to check out our previous podcasts and subscribe to join us at our next podcast of The Leader in You, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. Until then, be well and be focused on your relationships. We'll see you soon.